Begin transmission, hello everybody, it's Chris and Ben with Outer Rim Transmission 117. This week we're talking all about Star Wars viruses, both inorganic and organic, thanks to the new miniseries of Dark Droids, a new event, I should say, in Star Wars comics. We have spawned off to talk about many other things that transpire, different plagues, different diseases throughout the Star Wars galaxy, both canon and legend. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. But first, how's it going, Ben?
Good, good. I mean, it's been a good week since we last talked. Continuing really well on my diet, so that's really fun. Down like another pound since last week, so just chipping away and chipping away there, um, and then I actually have downloading right now the Revenge of the Sith game for Xbox because I'm probably gonna like play that this week.
There you
Chris,
go,
you're
the
muted.
classic, the classic. Yep. So when it comes to my week in Star Wars, last week we had rumblings that Calrissian himself, Billy D. Williams, was kind of going on Twitter soon after our story for last week. How Billy D. How Donald Glover was gonna be writing. I was like, oh my gosh, all this news is happening right on top of each other. He kept teasing stuff. He kept teasing. What else is this guy gonna tease? He doesn't act in anything anymore. And then he drops that he's getting a memoir out of like, and I think you just heard the entire fandom kind of like make a deflating noise, like, ooh, crap. Like,
Yeah.
I had doubts, only because you can't literally have any promotion of a new series with the strike going on, that they can't literally announce anything new. I'm pretty sure that's like
Hmm.
in the guidelines. So I was like, how is an actor gonna even talk about that? Maybe they found a way. Maybe they found a way behind the lines. I don't know. Between the lines. So that was my week at Star Wars, was just a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people felt that way, and like I posted on X, I guess, like I posted on there, I said, hey, like, it's disappointing for us as fans, but hey, it's really cool for like Billy D. Williams to get like a big memoir out there though for his career because he's had such a huge like career, whether it be Star Wars or playing on Two-Face and Batman, like he's done so many different things. It's just cool seeing him get a memoir like that though.
Yeah, I remember, well, not remember. I just watched Batman, the old movies, for the first time before seeing The Flash, and I was shocked when I seen Billy D. Williams' names come at the crowd. It's like, I had no idea this guy was in this. Of course, I'm a sheltered movie and TV person up until 2012 when I went to college. I never watched anything besides Jurassic Park and Star Wars, so it shouldn't have been that surprising for me when I'm starting to actually expand my um, cinema and all that sort of experience. And I'm like, oh yeah, this guy showed up here, this actor showed up here, so that was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, it's always cool seeing like those actors like get or like looking back on movies and seeing oh that hey Lando's in that or oh hey Mace Windu's in Jurassic Park or like those type of things.
Yeah, well, being that Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time, I of course knew that one. But yeah, there's many
Yeah,
of others that I've like, oh wow, okay,
yeah,
there we go then. So
oh
I
yeah,
hear you're getting a new collectible of some sort.
oh yeah. Well, I'll save the collectible for a future podcast when Milton's on here because he'll really dig that. But that's a little tease to continue listening to Outer Rim Transmission. Um, But an interesting thing that I came across while searching collectibles this week was an interview with Shannon McRandall. And for people who may not know, she's actually the model that played Mara Jade. Like all the pictures you see basically of Mara Jade, that's her. Um, she's only like 50 years old right now, so she wasn't probably in her mid 20s when she first modeled in the early 90s for the character. Um, and I came across this little like 20-minute interview with her, and it was a good little interview. Her talking about her career in Star Wars and stuff, and she basically said, at first Timothy Zahn didn't like her. Like he was like, oh no, I don't think you're Mara Jade or whatever. Basically until she like got the costume and the whole getup on, he didn't like see her being a Star Wars character basically. So, once she got the costume on, he was convinced and was like, "Oh, well, I guess we can work with this." Um, so it was cool hearing that. And then she was talking actually how so when she went to Celebration 2, like she got invited, of course, because, Star Wars with the expanded universe back then, that was like popping so much. Like, of course, Mara Jade's going to get invited to Star Wars Celebration. So it was a really cool story with her and Mark Hamill, actually. So she said she was there at Celebration too, and when she was there, she said, they had her in the full getup, like the
Hmm.
full Mara Jade costume, like lightsaber, the
Whoa.
full, the black suit, like all that stuff, like that she wears and everything. Like she was in the full Mara Jade makeup, like all that stuff, just the full, it looked like you were stepping off a movie set, basically. But they had her, and she said there was a lot of fans like freaking out, going like, "Oh my gosh, you're cosplaying as Mara Jade really well." Blah 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 blah. Like, they didn't recognize her at first. They just thought it was just some redhead playing Mara Jade.
Yeah.
And and she said it was funny because so what they had planned actually at Celebration for Mark's panel back then was, whoever the host was at the time was like, "Oh, Mark, hey, you have a wife in the expanded universe." And he's like, "Oh, really? Do I?" And and the host was like, "Oh yeah, she's out here in our audience actually." And she's like, "Oh, can you please come up here?" And like they pointed to Shannon McRandall, and like then the audience, like she said, freaked and was like, "Oh my gosh, she's sitting in the audience with us." And they brought her up on stage with Mark and like the full Mara Jade get up, and she said he was just smiled and was like, "Wow, I guess Luke did pretty good." Um, and it was just a funny little story. But yeah, she said she like got to meet Mark back then and stuff, and it was like a cool moment getting to see, back then that would have been 20 some years ago. So Mark would have been in his early to mid 40s or so. So we actually got like a young Luke with a young Mara Jade like standing side by side basically on stage back then. And it was just a really cool story hearing her like talk about that experience with Star Wars, because it's like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great example of books and live action coming together
Yep.
in ways that we're starting to get now, of course, with Thrawn being
Yep.
in a panel with, other characters from Rebels. I'm trying to think like seeing Thrawn with maybe Leia. I heard some rumblings that there might be a Leia in Ahsoka at some point, something like that.
Yep.
Haven't looked into it, but like it'd be cool like seeing Thrawn with one of the legacy of the big three. Like that's the
Yep.
same sort of thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is a character from the books that's in the Thrawn trilogy with one of the original Trinity, So something like that would be the same sort of caliber. But yeah, I would like to be there in that audience and celebration. I guess that was 2002 because they were going every year that there was a new Star Wars movie coming out. So Celebration 2 would have been promoting Attack of the Clones at that point. I think that was in Indianapolis. I don't have it pulled up or anything right now, but yeah, that is sweet. Just like, okay, we have this person in the audience. I love when that stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
You see in other
And
conventions when,
she like she said, Mark had no clue on it. He was just doing his panel, and they were like, "Hey, this little fun fact," and like they just totally like bombshelled him and surprised him.
oh my gosh.
And she said, at first, he like he said he was like real nice about it and stuff and all that, and he was just like, "Wow," like because she's an attractive person, and he was just like, "Wow, Luke did really good."
Good old
Uh,
Mark Hamill. I guess at that
oh
point he was
yeah,
probably doing the Batman the Animated Series voiceovers or something like that.
yeah, I would guess that, and that's another thing too to add on to my This Week in Star Wars. A cool little thing for all of our Batman fans of the audience.
Hmm.
Go to Mark Hamill's Instagram this week, and just a couple days ago, of course it's in promotion with the Barbie movie, but you get to see Mark and Harley, Joker and Harley Quinn. Mark and Margot Robbie. Like it was cool seeing them together because like Mark Hamill's comment section was just loaded with, "Oh my gosh, we would love to hear like Mark's Joker with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and
Yeah.
stuff." And like that's all the comment section was Joker and Harley related comments on his Instagram page a couple days ago.
Oh my gosh. That's great crossover there. Again, the live action and the animated, two different mediums coming together. Ooh, let me put that
Yep.
on silent.
Well, and another thing too, like kind of to connect to my whole live action like Mara Jade surprising Mark, it kind of reminded me of who was it? Was it Ben Mendelsohn who came out as Krennic in the full getup when
Yep.
they already had released the Catalyst book? Was it Ben Mendelsohn that I'm trying to think who came out at Celebration the one year? Was it him as Krennic?
Yep. Yeah, I was him in the
Okay.
full suit with the Death Troopers flanking him, walking up to the stage. I would have
Yeah.
actually been in the same room I was in. That was back in at the XL Center back in 2017. No, 2016 for Star Wars Celebration Europe. That was the
Yep.
last time it was in Europe
Yeah, that's what it made
for
me kind of think
yeah.
about. I was like, man, this is kind of like when Krennic came out, with the from Catalyst, and he came out to Celebration. It was like, boom, whoa, like we're seeing the character in live action here.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many fun moments like that. There's so much potential for more moments like that as we go forward here. There's just a lot more in development with Star Wars. A lot more. There's always truth in legends is more true than ever now with a lot of these series. Things coming to the big screen. High Republic coming to the big screen. So we're ever gonna be looking out for all that stuff in the future.
Oh yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. Like, there's a lot of different things. I mean, like you said, there's always truth in legends. I mean, look, we're getting the big blue guy here in a few weeks. Like,
Yep, we're just about, let's see, the 23rd. Oh, wow, we're a little bit over 3 weeks away. Wait,
gosh,
no, we're a little bit
no,
over 2 weeks away.
that's like two. That's like 16-ish, 17 days away. I think
Oh
16,
my
17. Like,
gosh.
yeah, it's gonna be a good time, and that will definitely be a 3 a.m. watch for me.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk on the internet now where like a lot of this stuff that is coming out on Disney Plus is no longer necessary to stay up till midnight. Right, like the hype, a lot of people's hype for a lot of these projects, a lot of it being Marvel, but even some of it being, I guess, Star Wars, where it was like, oh, you had to be up at 12 a.m. It's like a lot of this stuff is not the end all be all that we thought it was, especially with
Yep.
Marvel. So it's like a lot of us have kind of just become jaded or apathetic, and we're just like, well, we'll watch it at some point the day it comes out.
Yeah,
But
we'll
yeah,
watch it at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m.
yeah,
I'm gonna give Ahsoka the chance because, like, hey, it's Ahsoka, it's Dave. I think it should be good. Like, in theory, it should be good just based on everybody that's involved in the project. Like, I think it should be. So
hmm,
I have a lot of hope for it at least.
certainly, certainly. So, if you want to figure out when we go live to join us in our weekly podcast, we go live every Sunday at about 7 p.m. Eastern, sometimes a little later, depending on the week, but usually 7 p.m. at the earliest. We're also available on any podcast app of your choice, whether it be Spotify, Google Play, Apple. Just look up Outer Rim Transmission. You can always send your questions after the fact, after the show goes live, at Gmail. We have our handle at outerrimtransmission at gmail.com. We also have shirts at the teespring.com/outerrimtransmission. So there's your plugs. They're all out of the way. Speaking of which, if you're watching YouTube channel, then you're probably already subscribed. But if you aren't, make sure you do so. But what I've had on the channel lately is a bombardment of book reviews. I've had a book review of Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade. I have a book review of the upcoming Star Wars High Republic Tales of Light and Life. I have a review, a very early review for the Kira and Crimson Dawn novel, Star Wars Crimson Climb. So there's a lot of reviews up there to get you guys hyped for when those books come out in the next month and in October. So there's a lot coming down the pipe, and very exciting stuff with Star Wars kind of taking a back seat in the last couple of months, but it's definitely coming back very strong very, very soon. So, speaking of which, the comics continue to roll on. The comics have not stopped. This week, we have the Hyperspace Stories issue number 7. Very fun tale with Boba Fett protecting a young Wookiee. There's some really good artwork in this. I have a review of that, as well as Yoda issue number 10. Yoda issue number 10 closes out the Maxi series, and it's all about Yoda learning from his failures through his life, his long lived life, and coming to grips with how he's going to prepare training Luke when Luke sees him during events of Empire Strikes Back. So, a very cool introspective take on Yoda and how he kind of gets himself to continue even though he's downtrodden and in defeat after Order 66. We also have Young Jedi Adventures. That series has more episodes to watch on Disney Plus. I'm kind of debating if I'm going to continue watching, and I watched the first 6 or 7, and I know it's not for me, and I know there's not any huge lore bits, so I'm probably not going to continue watching, but if I'm really bored one day, I will. And that's not to slight it. I mean, this is a great show for kids. that are under the age of maybe 4. And I do, even though I might appear like I'm a 4-year-old sometimes, being all giddy with Star Wars, I am not completely going to be enraptured by this 30-minute special. So there you go. There's more episodes to show your kids. I think that's a great entryway to Star Wars, is showing them that, because it has all the archetypes of Star Wars, whether it be dogfights, speeder bike chases, the Force, lightsabers, um, just like journeying around and finding cool stuff around planets in the galaxy. And there's all the aliens you would expect, all the alien species. And it's set during the High Republic, so, it's a kind of cool way to get a backdoor into that. So, the biggest thing, and this is where we're going to spawn off of our major topic tonight, is Dark Droids #1 came out. This is the big event that has been promoted and promoted for the last several months. Since Star Wars Celebration back in April, that's when we got the first reveal of it. It's a story about what happens when an evil old droid entity starts taking over every droid in existence with the mission to destroy all organics. So the virus spreads, and we see that transpire in this first issue. From the Imperials to the Rebellion, no one is safe. It looks like this is going to be a pandemic of the utmost out of control kind of variety, set in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, when you just think that there's enough stuff there that it can't go any further. Yet again, we have another huge crossover joining the likes of War of the Bounty Hunters, Hidden Empire, Crimson Dawn, or Crimson Reign, I'm sorry. So yes, continues off the events of the Kira comic book trilogy with basically what happens at the end of Hidden Empire issue #5. So this is what I thought I was thinking about when I was reading this earlier today. I'm just like, you know what? There hasn't been many like pandemic or endemic events in Star Wars, but there are a few that stand out to me, Ben. And the first one, you'll remember this. Fans of the Clone Wars will remember this, and that is the Blue Shadow virus. Do you remember this one, Ben?
Yep.
Yeah, so you got Dr. Bindo Vindi, or whatever his name is. This is set during the Clone Wars. This was on Naboo, and this is probably okay. So it's a waterborne virus. A victim infected with the virus only had 48 hours to live, but became fatal. It was notorious for being supposedly incurable, with a 96 success rate in killing carbon-based life forms. An antidote was able to be synthesized with Riksa root, a rare plant only found on the planet Iago. Planets infected with the disease developed visible blue veins, and in some cases, the rest of an infected individual's skin would also turn extremely pale. Other symptoms included coughing and fatigue. So it almost sounds like an Uber version of COVID. This is
Hmm.
like basically, from what I'm going to discuss tonight, this is probably the closest thing to COVID, I think, as far as like something that we kind of experienced all around like a year or two ago. I know it's still around. I don't want to make light of it, of course, at all, because it took the lives of many people, unfortunately. But this is something that, it's on the Clone Wars. That's what's so great about the Clone Wars, is you can go from, an episode of droids going to Coruscant to get Drogon fruit and going to Spa one day, to the Battle of Umbara with just the absolute version of treachery, to literally Jar Jar Binks and Padme trekking around Naboo, and next thing you know, stumbling upon this blue shadow virus that's wiping out, getting people sick. So yeah, I thought this was interesting, because we always talk in Star Wars about the big epic space battles, the big wars between Jedi and Sith, the political intrigue of what is happening with the rebels and rebel spies in the Empire, what is happening with the everyday man on living on a backwater planet that grows up to be a hero. But it's nice to see that Star Wars, mimics real life in a way, with plagues and stuff. Or yeah, this stuff, when you have billions of life forms all over the galaxy, all over the universe, there's bound to be things like this that happen.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was one of the first virus-related things that came to mind when I started thinking about this topic today. Was I was like, oh yeah, there was that one in Clone Wars on Naboo and all that sort of stuff. And it is cool. It's a good point that you like pointed that out. It's cool that like, they have that layer in Star Wars where it's not just like, all the other Star Wars stuff, droids, lightsabers, blasters, ships, etc. Like even they're adding like this bit of real world, like you said, like a plague basically into it. So, so yeah, like that's a really a good example there that like that we actually got to see like on screen because I think that was one of the main like when I was really thinking about it, I was thinking that was like one of the main instances of us seeing it seeing something like that on screen in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, first off, we have the race side. What's up, Hannah? She's saying that Ahsoka comes out at prime time, 5 p.m. in Australia. Oh man. Ah, I'm so jealous.
Well, I'm gonna be staying up with her pre-show stream. That's gonna be the only way I stay up till 3 a.m.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. She might be holding off on doing anything with related to
Oh
Ahsoka.
yeah.
I think she might still be on
Yeah.
deciding for that. But well, we'll be here if you want to join us. I know it's a
There
slippery
we go.
slope with people deciding if they're going to talk about Star Wars, and I know we haven't really addressed it.
Yeah.
I probably will take an aside right now to explain our position on it. None of us on this panel are, going to be SAG actors. So between me, Milton, and Ben, at least not at this time, we don't intend to be SAG. So we're gonna continue as if nothing. We're not gonna continue as if nothing's not happening. We obviously know that these people have demands that should be met, and but we feel that right now we want to talk about the good work that these people are doing that are they're not able to promote their stuff, but we want to respect them. We want to abide by the laws. Again, it's a slippery slope, not the laws but the guidelines. It's a slippery slope, but when it comes down to it, we're passionate about Star Wars. We want to keep the conversation going. I feel like there is sort of a need for a place for people to go to talk about Star Wars. And for us personally, not everybody's going to be wanting to talk about it or publicly wanting to talk about it. But hey, maybe our channel will be a safe space for the people that decide they don't want to talk about it on their show as much. They can join us and feel free to chime back and forth. But again, I think I speak for everybody here between Milton and Ben that, we all
Oh,
want these people to get a fair deal and
oh,
all
yeah.
that. But we just want to make sure that we also honor the people that put in the work on that show as well. Um, you know, I don't want to completely shut them out either. So we're gonna respect them by doing what we've always done and calling out great performances, calling out great work by the cast and the crew and everybody involved as we continue along to review those episodes on a weekly basis. And hey, I mean, this thing could end tomorrow. No one really knows. I mean, probably not, but like, there's a good chance it'll still be going on by the end of this show. By the end of Ahsoka being over in October, I think it's going to be over if you count the 8 episodes or 7 weeks or whatever it is,
Yeah.
since we get the two in the first week. But yeah, so I wanted to do that quick aside. I didn't want to act like we're just ignoring anything out there because I know it's a big talking point. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a like a fair assessment, and like you said, when it comes to this whole situation, like of course we want everybody to be like fairly paid and treated well, and etc. But also like you said as well, I don't want to not celebrate the work of like the actors involved in the show, like Rosario or Mary Elizabeth Winstead or the girl that plays Sabine or any of those actors. Like I don't want to like not celebrate their work or even like on the writing side of it, like Dave Filoni writing the series, like we want to celebrate his writing for the series and stuff. So I think there is a good line there of like, hey, you want them to get paid and everything, etc. But also I don't want to like not support the people that are striking, you know, like I want to support their work as well. So, it's just a fine line, and of course, we want to like do it as like respectfully as we can, and continue to move forward and make adjustments
Yeah. I
when
mean,
needed.
especially like I know a few times on other podcasts or some people commented on other podcasts like, oh no, like, are we gonna boycott this thing? And now the actors definitely don't want that to happen. They don't want anybody to boycott, because if they boycott these things, then they'll get like a lot less views, and then their fight will be even harder when they're trying to fight for this stuff, and they're trying to fight an uphill battle already. So it's like, all right, we don't need the studios to be like, well, it's not panning out with the series because the views are low, so nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen now. But so yeah, keep watching. Join the channel. When we go live on Sundays, we'll be talking about the new episodes as they come out. We'll be excited as ever. It'll still feel a little bit weird talking about it, just because a lot of our other friends are not going to be talking about it. A lot of the other channels that I like to, or the podcasts I like to listen to, it's going to be kind of eerie, not sort of, listening to them on a weekly basis. But everybody's welcome to come here and hang out with us, at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to address all of this, and this is a podcasting. It's part of like the escapism of entertainment as well, and maybe we can like give people that want that bit of escapism for an hour or two, that potential outlet each week.
Certainly, certainly. So, going back to the Blue Shadow virus of Dr. Vindy, what was your first memories of this episode? Do you remember that you liked these episodes initially? Did you not like them?
I remember, okay, so for me, this has always been my view on both Rebels and Clone Wars. Okay, so Rebels, in my opinion, has a lot more lows, but it also has a lot more like high, like mega peaks, like oh my gosh, amazing moments. And Clone Wars is more like a consistent like B. It's consistently just solid across the board. And I feel like these episodes specifically, they were just one of those solid episodes. Like if it comes on when you're watching the season, whichever season that was in, if it comes on, those aren't episodes you would skip, unlike the ones like with the droids in the desert with R2 and that like that alien guy and stuff. Like that whole one, that whole weird, really weird droid arc. Like those are episodes you'd skip. But like this Blue Shadow virus one, you wouldn't skip it. It's fine. It's like entertaining. It's intriguing enough to watch. Like so I remembered it, when I first like thought of this one, I was like, oh yeah, those are just some solid Clone Wars episodes.
Yeah, yeah, they were pretty cool because you get to see more Naboo, and there's so much history on Naboo. I was like going back there. It's the home planet of Palpatine. This is before Revenge of the Sith, so we're getting to see a lot more cool stuff there. Another big plague I liked. This is the first real reference of a plague in Star Wars that I ever remember because I was very young, and that was with Knights of the Old Republic, and seeing on the undercity of Terrace that there's this Rakghoul plague, and that was frightening for me because it was literally these you go down the elevator in front of, I forget why you go to the undercity, but like you're talking to a person at this gate, and then all of a sudden this like white creature just like comes up behind the guy, and he's like shouting, and he just like gets taken down by this white like kind of crazy creature. I can't even explain it, what it looks like, but it's just very creepy, vampiric, hunched over, white, pale. And then all of a sudden, that guy turns into one. And then you have to like run through this area with those things attacking you. But it was interesting because it was like those creatures provided so much fear. It was basically the closest thing to like zombies in Star Wars at the time, and more like vampires, I guess. And it's even transferred into the current MMO, Star Wars: The Old Republic. They have a whole thing where it's the Rakghoul event. So
Oh,
like
nice.
every 2 or 3 months, there's a certain planet where they have a Rakghoul outbreak. So it could happen in Alderaan. It could happen on Terrace, I think. It could happen a couple other planets, and like you could literally get infected and turn into one and walk around. Um, so have you ever heard of the Rakghoul plague?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've heard it described before by other people, and stuff, but like I said, it's been so long since I played that game. I just don't, I don't remember it. Just because I played it when I was younger. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I was looking into the different plagues and things today, that was one I came across when I was reading into them and was like, oh man, that's an interesting one. And I didn't, when I was doing my reading, I didn't realize it was in the MMO version. So that's cool that they like included that as like an event as well. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, like it's just interesting seeing like all these different like plagues in Star Wars, like because honestly, when you first floated the topic idea, you saw my reaction. I was like, what do you mean viruses and stuff? Because I didn't even when you think Star Wars, you don't immediately think about viruses until you start thinking into it more. Um, so yeah, I mean, you have that one, you have the blue shadow virus, and like for me, when I started digging, I was like, oh yeah, like there's plenty like in like legends talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just got done with the Thrawn trilogy, and there was two
Okay.
actually in there.
Really?
Yeah, I'll start out with the basic one at first, just because like, and then we'll build our way up to like the most exciting one, which is my last one, which I think is the best one. Um, but the first one actually, and this shows you like the Empire's like treachery and how bad they are. So back, anybody who's read the Thrawn books or even seen Star Wars Rebels, Thrawn's bodyguard Rook is
Oh
A
yeah.
Nogri species, and their home planet is named Honiger. Well, anyways, back during the Clone Wars era and the pre Galactic Empire era, Palpatine sent Vader and like stormtroopers there, and
Hmm.
basically like they went in, and it's cool when they do this little flashback. Vader actually goes in, and it's kind of like a pseudo. So at first, like they send in a little legion of stormtroopers, and then the Nogri warriors take out all the stormtroopers, like it's nothing. And
Dang.
then Vader's like, all right, I'm gonna pull a Rogue One on you guys. And Vader goes down on the shuttle by himself,
Hmm.
and like the Nogri people, they like it's from their perspective, like they're basically like, oh, what's this one dude gonna do? And then Vader just like whoops all of them, and like leaves however many surviving. Well, that's basically when the Nogri people like pretty much bend the knee to the Empire, and the
Hmm.
Empire basically say, hey, we'll leave you what's the word, like independent, we'll leave you independent, basically, as long as you let us basically like use your your planetary space as kind of like a check-in point, all this stuff. So and and use some of your resources. So what the Nogri people don't realize though is the Empire, when they do this, when they're sending in these planes to quote unquote help the Nogri people like grow their crops and grow their supplies and stuff. Basically, what they're doing is they're putting this virus out. It's called God, I rehearsed it. It's called Tribex Phi 1138.
Oh.
It's like a real wacky science fiction type name, but Tribex Phi 1138.
Of
And
course, they
basically,
had to
what it
stick 11
does.
38 on the end there, of course.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. I'm gonna say that's why I said, of course, 1138. And anyways, what it does is it basically like, okay, so if you think of a plant's production value, like say it being 100%, it basically reduces the plant's produce value down to like 10%. It like reduces it by like 90%. So it's still like, so the Nogri people are still like growing and growing stuff and trying, and it like just, it basically makes them grow minimal crops. And then the Empire's coming in and still taking like half their crops and stuff. So like the Nogri people are basically like living on rations for decades. Um, and like
Wow.
it shows like how like treacherous the Empire was, because like even when Leia goes to visit the Hanagar system, like the whole planet has like a gray tone to it versus like a
Oh my
green, like the
God.
green, like that's how much the Empire's like spread this virus through the planet actually.
Wow.
Um, so it's a really not a really cool thing for the Nogri people, but it's an interesting thing because it really shows like the buildings, even in Legends, the buildings of how like evil and stuff the Empire actually is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because I haven't heard of a biological weapon like that in Star Wars. Like it usually attacks people, but to actually target the plants, to just dominate a species that way is also very effective.
Yeah, and see, the Empire used this whole trick to manipulate the Nogri, because basically when Vader came in and did that, if Vader came in and like whooped on the Nogri warriors, they basically like were like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is like a god," basically, because they were viewing the like the ships and the star destroyers as pretty much like big animals because they're a primitive system. And
Mm.
and that's when like the Empire gets the service of the Nogri. So like the Nogri, in these books, like they're fully in the Empire servitude. All the men, it's like the typical war trope of like women and kids stay behind and old people, and then
Yep.
all men, like young boys and up, are immediately taken by the Empire to put into Nogri commando groups.
Oh, okay.
So like that's basically how they got under the Empire's boot. And like, Thrawn would occasionally like check in there with them and stuff. And that's where his bodyguard Rook came from. So, you
Hmm.
know, and that's like how Rook came into servitude of Thrawn. Like basically like he was just a commando that got taken and then, it was showed enough loyalty because like even like when Leia and Luke, or even when like Leia and Chewie are on Honager, like they're basically saying, look, we are showing you literally dead on proof the Empire is doing this. And like the Nogri people were basically like, no, the Empire still like, protected us over these years, so we still got to show loyalty. So like they didn't even realize like how bad the Empire was treating them. Like, they were getting manipulated that badly.
Holy crap.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was an example from the the original Thrawn trilogy.
interesting. Because I have a feeling
Yep.
that we're gonna both have the same one for one of these that you're gonna mention.
Oh, I mean, if it's from the one book we're thinking of, that's my third point, or that's my
Oh,
last one. That's
all
the big
right. Well,
one.
give us your second then.
Okay, the second one actually comes from the second Thrawn book, Dark Force Rising,
Oh,
because there were two good examples actually. So we got the Tribexal Phi virus or 1138 from the three books in general, and then from Dark Force Rising, which is the second book, we have the famous one. So basically, in Star Wars EU, in the expanded universe slash legends, back in the pre so basically in the old republic, basically in the time of the prequel era, basically the time of the prequel era, the Galactic Republic had this massive fleet called the Katana fleet. Like they
oh
wanted to build
yeah.
up the massive, like, the entire like army of the new republic and stuff. Well, anyways, they built a fleet of 200 dreadnought ships, and then the lead ship was called the Katana. Well, anyways, what happened was when the Katana fleet was basically, they were just like in transit somewhere, and when they're out and about, like the pilots and the crew members were out and about, they went into this port, and this port basically had this virus called the Hive virus, and basically
Hmm.
what it does is it basically like makes everybody who gets it like go mad and eventually die. And so what happened was, the crew knew they had it. So like the lead like captain slash pilot of the Katana, the lead ship, he went and basically it was like the whole sacrificing of the entire fleet thing. They went before they went and flew away. They went and they outfitted all the 200 Katana dreadnoughts with a slave circuit. And in the original EU, what a slave circuit was is basically like it's like a hardwire circuit for a ship, like Lando actually. So Lando's in the Lady Luck, he
Oh.
actually yeah, he actually so Lando has a slave circuit in the Lady Luck, and basically what it is, think of it as you have a smartwatch, you press a button, and your ship will like rudimentarily get to whatever location that GPS is at,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's that sort of thing. So, anyways, what they did was like they basically hardwired the slave circuit. So all the other
Yep.
199 ships, they slave circuited all those to the Katana, like the lead one. So all those ships would follow because all the crew members were like going crazy and like dying and stuff. So what they did was they took the lead Katana ship and basically blasted it to the unknown regions, and it took the whole 200 dreadnoughts with them.
Oh.
And basically, this all leads into the Dark Force Rising book and the Thrawn trilogy because the whole point of that, the old name of that fleet actually was the Dark Force because it's like this dark omen around it because of this disease that's inside the ships and stuff. Well, you basically have in Dark Force Rising, you basically have all the lead characters, good and bad, making a mad scramble to try to get to the Katana fleet because they want to be able to,
Oh.
like whoever takes control, either the New Republic or the Rising Empire with Thrawn in the group, whoever takes control is going to get 200 new ships, basically, because they're all unmanned. They've all been presumably just floating in hyperspace or floating in the unknown regions somewhere. So you have that, and like you basically have like our heroes like interact with these ships. Obviously, like in Dark Force Horizon, they go and find them, and like you have Han and Luke and like Talon Card, and they go to like the Katana, the lead ship, and like like Luke talks about like how eerie of a feeling it is because like they could tell like a bunch of people died here and like all this stuff, and it was like a real creepy feeling, and like they made it in like especially when you're listening to this book, it makes it like real ominous too because like Luke, it was like from Luke's perspective, and he was saying, it was so ominous because like
Hmm.
after the people died, the droids were still operating,
Huh.
inside this ship. And he said, like, inside the lead Katana ship, it was like it was a new ship because the cleaning droids were still on and like cleaning. So and like Han came across where like a droid was like moving a dead body somewhere, like, um,
Wow.
so you have those type of things. So that was like such a big turning point of the Thrawn trilogy was this little history lesson about the hive virus, and that's basically what that was one of the biggest cruxes of the entire Thrawn trilogy was the Katana fleet and how important it was, and basically that's leading to that led to like what happened in the third book and stuff. But yeah, I was like, oh man, that's another really good virus example from like the EU. Just getting that whole thing with the Katana fleet, and it makes you wonder too, like with the Ahsoka series, because like they're obviously like taking a little inspiration here and there. Like it makes you wonder if they're gonna include any of those like obviously it won't be directly called that or anything like that, but it makes you wonder like what they're gonna be doing with Thrawn, like if they potentially like I don't know bring troops or ships or like stuff like that because we saw a lot of things get like sucked away by the Purrgil and
Oh
Rebels
yeah.
like so yeah,
Yeah, it's
that was my
interesting.
second one.
It's interesting because they actually have a similar storyline in the current comics. The flagship, the previous arc before Dark Droids, there was a fleet that was it was a different name of a fleet, but it was from the High Republic fleet, and they got stuck in a place called No Space where there was a whole convoy of ships, and the rebellion needs the fuel from these ships because the Empire, in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, is like just cutting off their fuel sources that they can't get anymore. So they find out about this mythical Camarot convoy or something like that. And yeah, they get there and they find out that like these people are all still alive. It's a full colony. But hyperspace doesn't work. Like normal hyperspace, they're in like a bubble in this area for whatever reason. It's called no space. You have to have a path engine, which is like a specialized hyperspace engine that the Nile developed from the whole of the High Republic. You have to have one of those to get in and out of that place. But sometimes people end up in that space because like their hyperdrive might malfunction and they end up there and they can't ever get away again. But then Luke goes there and Leia and Chewie and Lando and they're able to put their heads together and figure out, oh, we have to utilize this path engine that we have on our ship that Holdo has, and so that was cool. Of course, nobody had viruses on that one, but
Yeah.
no, that's interesting. I
So,
I, I forgot about all that stuff with the Thrawn stuff.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely an interesting like piece together how they piece that all together with the Katana fleet. Like because like in the first book you just get kind of like rumors of it. Even you get a scene where like Lando and Han are somewhere and like Lando looks at a chair and he like notices like a marking on it. He's like, oh, this has to be like from that Katana fleet. Like I know this because basically when he was younger, like he knows the production of like where those like chairs and items were from, and he's like these have to be from the Katana fleet. So it leads like Lando and Han down like a detective trail onto who could be knowing where it was and stuff. So
Mm.
it was cool, like the way they did it. Like especially in the Dark Force Rising book, like it literally, it's Zahn's so good at like tethering storylines together from all the different angles and building to the one like location. And like throughout the whole second book, you get Thrawn tethering stuff together, like finding out where stuff is. You get Luke, you get Han and Lando, you get Talon Card, you get all these people converging in on the Katana fleet basically by the end of the book, and then like there's a really cool like little Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of cool stuff when it comes to that whole book series. But yeah, the Katana Fleet is some of the most iconic stuff from that book.
Hmm. Wow. So I'm reading about. No, I haven't gotten there yet. I read the first book, but apparently there's something called the Kratos virus that runs through the X-Wing novels. And apparently this thing, developed by the Empire in 7 ABY, caused the death of millions of aliens. Once it infected a host, the virus destroyed the infected host body cell by cell until the victim's flesh fell apart completely, resulting in agonizing death. Highly contagious, the Kratos virus is designed to both target only non-human populations and be treated by a large amount of Bacta. Um, the virus was transmitted by physical contact or through its water supply, but could not spread by airborne transmission. Looking at this, apparently, going back to 7 ABY, this one director of Imperial Intelligence released this plague upon Coruscant immediately before the capital world was captured by the New Republic and 7 ABY. Izzard hoped that the virus would cause resentment between a human and a non-human population, ultimately leading to the destruction of the New Republic, which was nearly rendered bankrupt due to the cost of acquiring back to, to treat the illness. Millions of aliens were killed by the Kratos virus, resulting in conspiracy theories among the non-human populations and political maneuvering within the New Republic Provisional Council. Now that is really interesting how the Empire somehow managed to cause disarray in the citizens of Coruscant. And the fact that they developed a virus that could literally kill everybody but like humans. Because we always hear just the species that the Empire was. They're like xenophobic and
Yeah,
um,
I mean they mention that in the Thrawn books. Like they talk about, like when Mara's talking about Thrawn to Luke, like she literally says like, it's surprising like the Emperor basically thought really highly of Thrawn, or he would have never had an alien be a Grand Admiral.
mm-hmm.
Like they definitely were like anti, anybody but humans.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, I can probably guess at what your third one is. Does it have to deal with a book that I might have read in the last year?
Yeah, yeah, it's the biggest one or I think
All
it's
right.
the to me it's the best virus in Star Wars, like for a lot of reasons.
All right. So I'm guessing you're talking about the Blackwing virus. Is that correct, man?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the first
Yeah.
things that came to mind when I was thinking about this topic for tonight. It's like, holy crap. Like, I read that book. It's a short and sweet book. I read it actually close to a
Well,
year ago, but oh my gosh, is that a devastating virus?
oh yeah. Well, the fun thing about it is, Chris, now did you read have you like touched up on it, or did you look at the Wikipedia page like
No.
about the history of it?
No, because I think there's another book
Oh,
that might tie into it too.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll like give a little dive on that. So basically like the cool thing is with the Blackwing virus, basically what the history of it was. So, of course, we have the Death Trooper book. We'll get into that. But the Blackwing virus, like if you look it up, like it was created around like 4,000 years
Yep.
before like it was in the Old Republic era. Like it was 4,000 years ago. It was created by like Darth Drea, I believe the name was, and basically the point of it was like the rudimentary way of they were trying to figure out a way to like basically give a virus to like cheat death type thing, like so make you live longer. And like that
Ah.
basically became like a big they tried it, became a big outbreak, killed a bunch of Sith users back then, and it was kind of like sealed away. And then like fast forward like 3,000 years, it was like 1,000 years prior to the original trilogy. You have God, I can't think of the Darth's name. Anyways, so you got
Hmm.
more dark side users, more Sith, trying to like crack the code of Project, Blackwing. Basically, again, they were trying to do it, and basically, it killed a bunch of the Sith, like the Sith acolytes. Like there was a bunch of like Sith running around, and they basically got killed off by this Blackwing virus again because they were trying to do the same thing. So like it was the whole idea of like cheating death. Like they were trying to use it to like cheat death initially, and then fast forward to the Death Trooper book, you have at that time like the Empire's like looking into it as a potential biological weapon, like we've talked about with like, you know, in canon and Legends, like the Empire is always up to no good, and they were going to use this Blackwing virus basically to use it as a biological weapon, and then on this Star Destroyer, it basically like got out and the Star Destroyer got like sealed off from everybody basically, and it turned, for all intents and purposes, it turned the crew into zombies. And like at first, it's like the way that the Blackwing virus works is like it's more of a slow. So you got to think about it in like a progression of like, okay, so like it starts out like if you first get infected, like you can turn like super quick within like seconds to minutes, and then basically what happens is it's like the stereotypical, you start out as a slow zombie, but then you progress to a zombie that's learning and actually able to move really fast and, you know, think cognitively with the other zombies. So it's kind of like a shared mind type thing.
Like a hive
So like,
mind?
yeah, so we see that in the Death Troopers book where they're almost like planning against like the main characters, like they're almost planning and setting traps for them, even though they're mindless zombies. And
Mm.
and they're so like this virus makes them like hungry for flesh. So like that's kind of like the overview and like kind of a little bit of history about the Blackwing virus. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I just remember being like when it comes to Star Wars, there's so many genres, whether it be, political thriller, whether it be
I
Western,
would
whether it
love
be
to see this live action,
samurai.
that book.
And this captured horror so well in the Star Wars galaxy. It's like it's a self-contained tale where you're not really, to a certain degree, to a certain point, you're dealing with all new characters. Then, there's some big character towards the end there. But up until that point, it's like this is how you make a Star Wars story. You make it self-contained. You make the stakes very high because these characters you don't know what's gonna happen. The amount of suspense that the author Joe Schreiber put into this book was incredible. Like I said, I think it's just shy of 300 pages. Like you could finish this book in a weekend. It's the way it's paced is it's such a quick read, but I love how things are strung out. In the first like the pacing is so well, like you're uncovering this mystery, like why is there nobody on the Star Destroyer? Ooh, what's in this room? Okay, now this suddenly this guy's not responding. It's the perfect layout for a horror movie, but it's in book form. You're right. I would love to see maybe if they have like an anthology Disney Plus series of just random Star Wars stories, they
Yep.
could make a Death Trooper 30-minute like little thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, you could easily do like that, or heck, even make a little 90-minute Death Trooper book adaptation movie for Disney Plus. Like you said, just do like an anthology series or something. They could market it that way, and just like there's so many good points in that book where it's just like you said, it brings the horror vibes, it brings the vibe of like, oh my gosh, like a virus and all this stuff. And also, the crazy thing is, I think this was released a few years before The Walking Dead was even out. So it was even, I think it beat The Walking Dead to like the zombie thing. Um, so you have that. Uh, and yeah, it's just a good, really good book overall. And it really solidifies, like, also, like I said, how bad the Empire is, but also how crazy like a virus in Star Wars could be potentially, like when you have a big capital ship of like, I don't know, 20,000 crew members on it or something. Um, because there's always like the one scene I remember from that book where it's like the lead character, they go, like they're going, I don't know, to do whatever, when they're exploring around the ship, like
Mm-hmm.
he hears like a bunch of like groaning and stuff, and
Yeah.
like they go into this room, and like he looks down, and it's like in like looking down onto one of the hangars or like one of the
Yep.
sub bays of the ship,
Yep.
because like the floor collapsed, and he just sees all these like moving
Yep.
like bodies, and like it's just a big horde of like
Oh my
or like
God.
zombies and stuff. Like
Yeah.
just imagine seeing that in live action. Like, man, I would love
And
that.
at one point, he has to
um
climb up all those corpse people. Like,
yep.
oh, and he's like crushing their heads as he's
Well, and
climbing
the
up.
stakes
Like,
are so high when he's climbing because you're thinking he's gonna get nabbed.
yeah. Oh my gosh. And this is great because this actually ties into the whole premise of why I even made this a topic of this week's episode, is tying into the Scourge, which is the big proponent of the Dark Droids event series. It all starts out on a Star Destroyer, and there's a little droid that is the mind of the Scourge, and the droid goes onto a KX droid. Well, first off, they go to a planet, and the planet, it's an artificial planet. Um, Gosh, I forget the name of it, son of a gun, but it's the planet that Snoke will eventually be on. The Amaxine Station. It's the Amaxine Station. It appears on High Republic. Anyway, Crimson Dawn's last stand is on the Amaxine Station. So in the aftermath of the Empire defeating Crimson Dawn, the Emperor sends a team to like recover anything valuable on the Amaxine Station. And of course, like that droid thing was left behind and nobody knew about it. So it gets onto the KX, like the KX droid, which are like the K2SO looking security droids that's around there helping like heavy lifting. It goes onto the droid's head and it does like this laser thing into the back of the neck of the droid. And the droid goes from like you see the perspective of the droid originally seeing like through a green lens, and now it's seeing through like a purple lens with like flares, like lightning flares that are through the lens, so you know it's like infected. And then from there, now that droid's been infected, and it's a hive mind as well. The Scourge thing is always saying hunger, hunger, like it needs flesh to basically, it wants to kill
Yeah.
like organics. So then that little droid goes and infects more things, infects more things, infects more things. And it's even stated in there that there's like 47,000 crew members aboard a Imperial class Star Destroyer and about 2,500 droids working on there. So in a matter of, it seems like maybe minutes to an hour, all these droids are suddenly infected by this little drone thing that's been going around buzzing into them. So now these droids are like doing this really villainous things, like turning the compactor gas stuff from like the exhaust and all, like
Yep.
venting it through the airborne thing, so it's like killing the people that way. The droids are like just straight up venting people in the hangar to space. They are like, you have the medical droids and you see like blood of just like the saw blades, and like the medical droids are just like killing like patients. You see that the droids are just like electrocuting people. Like it is absolute. It reminded me a lot of Death Troopers, because it's like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
and then next thing you know, it's like the entire Star Destroyer belongs to the Scourge, and then the Scourge sends out like infected, what are they called, mouse droids into space that are somehow infiltrating onto the rebels ships like Home One and stuff. And now C3PO is infected. So it's like in a matter of like an hour or something, like you see the amount that stuff is spreading and no one even knows about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's pretty much like a droid version of Death Troopers.
Yep.
I mean, that's literally how it sounds. Like that's cool though. Like it's a cool aspect they did that though, just because like, normally with infected type stuff, it's always people, you never like really think about droids or machinery for that to that degree anyway. So it's cool that they like included something like that. That's a cool new idea. Like I wouldn't have thought of doing that specifically.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's nice because it does like flip the switch on. Oh yeah, this is something different. It's not the typical thing here. We are actually trying something different, having fun with it, but also it's just as terrifying.
Oh yeah, that's a cool. I mean, it's a cool idea because you got to think about it from like the start, like the Star Destroyer's crew members' perspective. Like that's another cool like kind of like scary movie vibe to it. Like oh my gosh, like it's kind of like your real world. What if like all these AI things go bad, basically?
Yeah, they basically were promoting the back at Celebration Europe. They were promoting it as like, what happens if like your cell phones basically got a virus and we're screwing up your daily routine. Like essentially, that's what droids are to the people in Star Wars galaxies. Like, okay, they are your friends. They are disposable. Some of them are helping build things. Some of are protectors. There's like various roles for droids. But what happens when all of a sudden all of them have one protocol, and that is to kill anything living with flesh. Like, oh, that's horrifying. That's absolutely horrifying. So,
Yeah, I mean,
um, I'll keep you guys up to speed on all of that. And oh, so kind of segueing out of that, keeping you up to speed with comics. I've gone on a new venture with the guys over at Ion Canon, the Star Wars Underworld Network. It looks like me and Matthew from the Ion Canon is going to be doing a comic centric podcast. I don't know how regular it's going to be, but we have the first episode up. You can download. Our first episode is basically diving deep into Dark Droids itself, kind of looking at the different events that happen as well as the other comics. So, yeah, if you guys are interested in more of a deeper dive when it comes to the comics and books rather than the 5-10 minute videos I give on YouTube, then go ahead and subscribe to the Ion Canon, subscribe to the Star Wars Underworld podcast feed, and go over there and subscribe to the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, and you'll be able to be notified whenever we do go live. Like, we're gonna try to do weekly, but it is summer, at least the end of summer, so things are kind of little haywire right now. People on vacations and all, but maybe it will be more regular, especially if you guys enjoy watching that. But anyway, real quick aside there. But yeah, do you have anything else to share based on viruses in Star Wars?
um, well, I mean, hey, your new venture might be more regular once we're getting into these colder months. Anyways, we're about there. I mean, we're getting there toward the fall. But
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. There isn't really any other like big viruses that I could think of for the most part. I mean, like I said, the Blackwing was the biggest one just because I think across the board, like that Death Troopers book is like top tier Star Wars legends, canon, movies, whatever. Like it's just one of the best stories in Star Wars in my opinion. Like it's right there. Like it's so good. So that's just like more of a recommendation than anything. Like if you're interested in that sort of like virus stuff, I would check out, the Death Trooper book, of course. I'm sure there's probably an audio version of it, but I read the
Mm.
paperback. Um, and then, if you want to hear the droids version of it or check out the droids version, then check out the Dark Droids comic.
Yeah, there you go. So fun times here. I always enjoy these discussions where we kind of take a deep dive into something that's not as mainstream in Star Wars. And I certainly haven't heard any other podcast talking about Star Wars viruses. So there you go. If you want to get into the nitty gritty on that, then there you go. The race said not really a virus, but did you mention the hive mind worm things that Ahsoka
Whoa,
and
I forgot
parasites that
about
pick up on the
those.
gym? I was thinking about that. I was in my head as you were talking about Death Troopers. I'm like, the brain worms kind of, I guess that's kind of a virus in a way where like the host is no longer in control of themselves. So I guess that would count. But yeah, that was at least another great horror story in Star Wars. I just
Yeah.
love how a Jedi like Barriss Offee could be completely consumed by this extraterrestrial thing in her brain, and the idea that they had to figure out its weakness, which happened to be cold.
That's another one I think would be cool seeing in live action. Like in terms of horror, like give us a 30-minute little special on that.
Why don't we? And Star Wars does a great job with horror lately. Like around October, November, they put out the Tales of series from, I guess, Dark Horse will be doing them now. They used to do like Tales from Vader's Castle, Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales from the Death Star, where they have all like the creepy Star Wars stories. Like, why don't we just get like an animated series, little micro series? Hey, Tales of whatever, and have like something cool like this, like Marvel, right? They're getting a Marvel Zombies treatment as a full-fledged series. We should be able to get the Star Wars series of that caliber.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like say with Death Troopers for example, like if you just like release like a little 20-second preview showing like a freaky looking dead stormtrooper like or something, for a trailer, people will tune in. Like zombies, Star Wars, like it's just I could see it mixing.
Oh yeah, they're. I think people like, well, obviously people like when things are switched up over its head, and if that were ever to be produced, people would be all over it. People would be all over just the idea of Star Wars horror in that kind of format on that kind of medium. They did it in Clone Wars already, so what's not to say they can't do it again? So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
man, we hoped everybody enjoyed our conversation tonight. Um, let us know in the comment section below. Let us know at our Twitter or our X accounts, whatever we're calling them these days, what you think. What other viruses you might have read in Star Wars Legends books that we didn't touch. We'd love to hear more about more of the plaguer side of Star Wars. In a very strange way, I guess. But we learned so much in Star Wars every week here. Been in the fandom since I was 5 or 6, and it's nights like these where it's like, yeah, I forgot all about that thing in Thrawn. So it's always fun to kind of recall old
yeah.
memories back, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, the cool part too is like when it comes to say these virus related books and like calling back on old memories for these things, if you check out the audiobook versions of these, they're really cool. So, you have like my example of like Honegger with the Noghri people. Like you like the scene with Vader, for example. When like the Noghri people are telling Leia the story of Vader coming there, it's really cool because, it's like a flashback basically, and like you hear the stormtroopers landing and like talking and stuff, and then you hear like Vader coming, and you have his lightsaber, and you hear the blaster fire and him deflecting and like all this stuff. Like it's kind of like you're listening to a scene play out. It's like a scene on there, and then of
Hmm.
course like Mark Thompson doing all the reading. It's great, and yeah, it's just really cool like hearing it play out that way.
Yeah. Oh, I think the other book that you got a lot of the background information on Blackwing Plague is Red Harvest. Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah, yeah, that sounds
I
correct.
think
God,
that's
I I
yeah.
I mean I've pretty much like with me. I've read like or listened to like almost every like Legend Star Wars book, so I've like forgotten more Star Wars than I've read because I've just like
Yeah.
it's just like an unlimited amount of like
Mm-hmm.
okay, what I hear from this or that like
That's the thing. It all melts together. Like I have a pretty decent memory when it comes to like Star Wars consumption, only because a lot of it I actually like write down and like put into documents and then make videos about it. So like those I'll remember, but it's the books that I don't take notes on and just read for pleasure, kind of. Well, I read all Star Wars for pleasure, but like the books I'm not gonna cover on YouTube, I'll just read through them and I'll be like, a couple months down the line, I'm like, what happened at this point in the book? Like I just completely forget. But yeah, I think that's one of the very few Old Republic era Star Wars books I have not read. That one and Knight Errant are the ones I haven't read, and Dawn of the Jedi, which I have a copy of. I'm just waiting to get through the Witcher series, and I only have 2 books left. Started the second to last Witcher book this week, so soon enough I will be involved in Legends. Just got to get through this 1 book series, and I'll be continuing on that long journey.
it's a good journey. There's plenty of good stories.
Oh man. So there you go. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, you can find us every Sunday around 7 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be talking the latest in Star Wars. We're gonna take a week off next week. I'm gonna be taking some time off, just going down the shore and hanging out at the beach for a couple days. So gonna be doing that. But we'll be back the next week to have our official Ahsoka preview. We'll keep you guys up to speed on some episodes you should probably watch, and going into Ahsoka, which would be just a few days after that podcast goes live. So, oh man, just thinking about the next podcast we're gonna do is the last one before that show comes out. It's pretty crazy to hear about that already.
Yeah, I mean, look, think about it. It doesn't even seem like it was that long ago we were all getting so hyped about Ahsoka from Celebration, and now it's like boom, we're here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for that. Thanks to the Rayside for checking out the live shows always. I know it's a great time over there in Australia. We're at prime time in the morning for you as we're getting ready. So hey, that's pretty cool. And definitely everybody check out Hannah's channel at the Rayside. She's got great, unique Star Wars content over there. And of course, you can download us on any podcast streaming network, whether it be Spotify, Google Play, Apple, Amazon, and more. Just search Outer Rim Transmission. Milton will be back with us as well from 2 weeks' time from now. So we'll see you then in 2 weeks for Ben, for I myself, Chris, aka Starrapter. You can follow Ben on X at Real Ben Maynard. You can follow me on X at Starrapter. You can find Milton over there at Milton Weber 7. So, from all of us, we hope you have a great couple weeks. Stay safe, enjoy summer, and may the force be with you always in transmission. Good night, everybody.